Good night, everybody.
So I got to watch the highly anticipated, previously canceled but then revived movie Nimona, a movie that went through a rough time with it being killed by Disney closing Blue Sky Studios.
Gross.
Thankfully, it was 75% complete and was shopped around until Annapurna picked it up and distributed it through Netflix. It's an adaptation of the graphic novel by N.D. Stevenson, the creator of She-Ra and the Princess of Power, which explains the headstrong attitude this movie carries, and it's warranted. I was given screeners for this movie, and I say straight up, I'm glad it got revived. This is a story that I think could easily resonate with those dealing with feeling rejected by society, as well as depicting dealing with internal struggles that can push you to the edge. Not to mention, it's also a ton of fun. I know that sounds contradictory, but bear with me. So the story plays out like this. A man named Ballister Boldheart dreamed and worked hard to become a knight for his kingdom. On the day of his knighting, an incident occurred where the beloved queen is killed, leaving him branded as a murderer and a traitor to his kingdom. He meets up with a shape-shifting spry young lad named Nimona, who helps to clear his name. As I watched this film, I was constantly thinking about how this movie is pretty unapologetic. It leans on its themes, but in a way that comes across as genuine. Like, I could feel the people who worked on it just letting their attitudes towards life and society shine through, and I think it's all the better for it. The way it goes about telling the story, I think it's gonna send people for a loop, but works in a great way. Yes, I'm being very vague about this because honestly, to go too into detail about it would be a big spoiler for the good surprises for this film, and trust me, there's some good surprises for this film. A certain thing happens in the second act that you would think would happen in the third, but it makes you want to see how things are going to play out for the rest of the film. I honestly didn't really know where this movie was going to go, which speaks to how well they did this story. Like, it's subversive in all the right ways, and it's just some good grade A storytelling right there that keeps you locked in. I really appreciate how they went about this story. I haven't read the original graphic novel, but this definitely got me interested in seeing how faithful it is, because I do want to see what type of changes were made in order to make this work as a film. I'll admit I'm assuming it's pretty faithful because the original author is a producer for this film, but you know, still curious. I will say low-key, Disney screwed up by not taking this film in. It would have been something that could have easily helped keep people's interest in them as a company than their more recent outings, even though I still think Elemental is actually a good film. Not doing a review on it, don't ask me. Hell, the characters themselves for this movie easily could catch on with just how fun and engaging they are. Nimona is just chaos incarnate. She's a true rebel looking to cause some mayhem. Like, Hobie would be proud. But she's very sympathetic. Of course, someone as fun-loving as she is, you should expect there to be some sort of tragedy that happened in her past. And it's a very effective tragedy. I really will sympathize for her, which also plays into the misconceptions that society built itself on. She's an outcast that many will see themselves in with her rebellious spirit, her want to destroy the institutes that wronged her, how hurt she feels from society's treatment of her. She has that young rebellious fire in her that so many can easily resonate, especially with just how she comes across. She's just very brash, but you know it's like there's something deeper to her. I wouldn't be surprised if she became an icon in others' eyes. Now, you also have Ballister, who's a guy that rose from the bottom to the top, and they smooth denied him. He's pretty much a guy who just wanted to become a knight, but with him having to clear his name of murder, that's not looking like it's happening. You can sympathize with him with all the kingdom after him, even though he did everything right, but they just see that him becoming a knight is just wrong. It doesn't help that everyone was basically against him from the start. It can speak to many minority groups, be you LGBTQ or black or a person of color, with this dilemma of just wanting to make it, but the system not letting you. It honestly speaks to how bad an institute can be, how the establishment screws over people. It just speaks to that broader theme that this movie is going for, and I think it's done in a really unique way that might feel a bit hammered on, but in these times where media literacy is a bit on the low side, especially if you're on the internet and talking to people who very much let CinemaSins dictate what they think, it's pretty warranted. I will say I really enjoyed Bal and Nimona's dynamic. Her wanting to be his evil sidekick just made for some very funny banter between the two, because this guy is just trying to clear his name. He's not a villain or anything like that, and she's just looking to cause some mayhem. And it's just absolutely hilarious how they play it off. His more rational thinking being challenged by Nimona's want to burn it all down just makes them a pair that you can get a good smile out of. They do give them moments though of having to deal with the heavy stuff bothering them, and those are pretty effective. There's one moment in this movie that deals with just, let's say, someone going through something that would involve a particular hotline. It's emotional, it feels real, it does not shy away from how hard these types of feelings can be, but it speaks to how we can't let that darkness win in the end. And I honestly got to give a lot of praise to the crew for how they do this moment, because it genuinely is heartfelt, gut-wrenching, and you're constantly thinking, wow, that's how it is for a lot of people. That's how a lot of people think. And it's just, God, did they do this right. Now, some of the side characters have small roles, but can leave a good impact. There's Ambrosius, who is Ballister's boyfriend. He basically is caught between his kingdom and his love. They make sure to keep him as someone who is clearly wanting to find the happy medium, but at the same time make him wrong. They do ask the hard questions of exactly how much did you know him if you can think he would do something so horrendous. He works sorta as a case of white fragility when you think about it. He benefited from this institute in a great way, and clearly is a little bit fragile on trying to take it down or change anything major. He's clearly not accepting how things are wrong, and his way of thinking needs to be reevaluated. Though you do sympathize with him, cause deep down he just wants his boyfriend back. So he's not a bad person, just someone looking for the right thing to do, but in the wrong way. And there's also another character named Todd who acts as sort of the dumb bigot in a sense. Like, they don't have him outright say slurs, but it's like, oh, this is the idiot bigot. You obviously can tell who he is, like just doofy, dumb, annoying and such, and honestly nobody even likes them. It's really fun to watch because he's just that much of a fuck up. There's no bigger arc to him, he's just a big jerk who you just like seeing fail. Now, when I say it's a fun movie, I do mean they indulge in how goofy they can be. There's just so many moments of the characters being goofballs without feeling like it takes away from the heavy moments, especially with Nimona's shape-shifting abilities. She just goes all out with all these crazy changes to herself, and it's just a lot of fun because of how goofy she gets. It's just a nice sense of adding levity so the darker parts can hit more. The animation for this movie is also very nice with what it accomplishes. The more cel-shaded look allows for more expressive faces and dynamic movements, especially with its use of squash and stretch. Plus, it can just be downright gorgeous to look at. The kingdom is just amazing with its use of lights. The design philosophy is mixing that old-time Middle Ages style with the more futuristic style, and it makes you want to see more of what the city has to offer. Honestly, I would want to go walking through this type of town. Now, I do want to admit though, there are a few small criticisms I have for this film, more like just some small critiques. I do have to say, I think it could have been longer. Maybe by like 10 or 20 minutes, since it's only about an hour and 30. It could have benefited from some more downtime for the characters to let certain moments hit harder and sink in. They still hit, but they do go right to the next thing that needs to be done, and it probably could have just lasted a little longer for them to sit on what they just realized, you know? Plus, it could have built a bit more on the world that they inhabit. Another thing is, I think the reveal to the mystery might be a bit easy to guess. I'm not bringing up a certain character because I feel like if I just mention anything about them, you already can guess who they are. Now, this does play into the whole second act thing that I mentioned, so it might be for a good purpose. So I'll leave that up to y'all, if anything. All in all, this is a great and fun movie. It has strong emotional moments that will get you on board the characters' dilemmas. The themes are strong, with them being about going against the authoritative institutes, which is pretty obvious considering the kingdom is referred to as the institute multiple times. There's also the message of not being accepted for who you are, and also challenging the preconceived ideas people have about different groups. We see that this society built itself on a lie, and some people in it are willing to go to such extremes to keep the lie intact under the guise of protecting the people. It's a pretty damn good movie, and there's definitely enough subtle details in it that would warrant a second watch. I had to give it a second watch just to really solidify what I'm feeling about this movie because it felt so subversive. I can easily say it's a fun metal time to be had.